Hello.
Yo, hello, mate.
How you doing, mate? You okay?
Yeah, good, good.
Good. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, and you?
Yeah, I just thought I'd reach out to you because I heard the track that you made with Showtek a little while back. And
Yeah,
really liked it, and obviously supported it on my YouTube channel in the mixes and stuff. So yeah, I thought I'd reach out to you and see if you wanted to come on.
yeah. That came about in a strange way because that I put the track out earlier in the year, and they jumped on it and said, "Look, we want to do a version of it,"
Right.
and we had to do a pull down and take the original version down, and we kind of worked together on that version,
Nice.
and yeah, it was good. It didn't do as well as they'd like,
Yeah.
but I think there was a problem at spinning. But it does happen. Do you know what I
Mm,
mean?
mm,
But it's led to other things because the next record's with them. It's on their label,
mm.
so which is Skink Records.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So you're the third person I've interviewed today. It's been a long day for me.
Bloody hell!
But yeah, so I had somebody on from Greece this morning at 11. And he's let's see, he's on Armada.
Yeah.
So he's signed to Armada, Protocol, Nicky Romero's label, and Enhanced, which is an American label. Had him on. Then I had this afternoon a guy from Wales called Tom Westy, who's done stuff with Jonas Blue.
Right. Okay.
So he's working with him quite a lot. So he's coming up in sort of the house scene. But he's been signed to Skink as well.
Oh, has he?
Yeah. So, oh God, I'm trying to remember what the track's called. If you just type in Tom Westy Skink, I guess it'll come up there.
Yeah.
Even so, second Skink artist of the day.
Bloody hell! Because they're part of Two Dutch,
Right.
the label, and
Right.
they're kind of a subsidiary of Spinning.
Mm.
So when I went to Amsterdam, shit, what's the thing there? ADE. Have you
Mhm.
ever been there?
I've always wanted to, but I haven't. No.
It's really good, man.
Mm.
It's because I mean I hate networking.
Yeah.
I'm really shit at networking. I don't like mixing with people and that kind of stuff. But they're brilliant because
Mm.
everyone's there for the same reason,
Yeah.
and you meet a lot of people, and everything's built on relationships.
Yeah.
You can't really build relationships like via emails.
Yeah.
You've got to you've got to see people and meet them.
Mm. Yeah.
And
You've got to get out there.
yeah, if you put yourself out and just take the bull by the horns and meet people, it's like, yeah, it's good. So I
Yeah.
hooked up with the guys there, and actually met Nicky Romero there as well,
Hmm.
because he was doing a kind of a talk, and I got a lot of respect for him. He's really cool, man,
Mm.
and what he was saying and the way he goes about with his label, like putting stuff together and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot
Yeah.
of good people out there. There's a lot of sharks, but there's a lot of decent people.
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely found that myself. Because I've met Nicky Romero a few times now myself, and he's a really nice guy. But like you say, I've had a similar experience because I've met quite a few people now. You know, dance music related. Just a bit of background about myself. I was a resident DJ at Ministry of Sound in 2019.
Right? Okay.
So I was there for about a year. But before that, I used to go most weekends just as a punter myself on my own because I used to love seeing all the different artists play there. So I was going for about 3, 4 years most weekends before that. So I got to meet pretty much everybody that's played there at one point or another, just going so often. And yeah, he's a really nice guy. Um, like you say, there is the sharks out there that can, or should we say divas? You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's quite a few divas, mate. It's I mean, I think the whole business is built on ego, isn't it?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I think, like you say, one of the chaps I was speaking to earlier was we was talking about how important the social media side of things is, and we were saying, you've got sort of three areas of being, a dance music artist nowadays. You've got producing, you've got DJing, and then you got the social sort of promotion.
Yeah.
And we came to a sort of quite sad conclusion that the most important of those three, if you actually want to get anywhere, is the social promotion. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to make you the greatest artist, but that seems to help your popularity the most, which it's a shame. A lot of guys like myself and you and other people who are real big fans of music in general wouldn't follow that, but that's what seems to attract the masses nowadays. You only need to have a catchy few Instagram videos, things like that, and you can be onto a winner.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about hype, and that's what social media is about. It's about look at me, look what I'm doing, and that's not me, that's not my style. But most labels now, they'll listen to the music and think, yeah, that's good. Let's check, see how many followers you've got.
Yeah.
If you ain't got any followers and you're not very active, they won't give you the time of day.
No, no.
Because I've always said that the trouble with the music business is back in the day, the people that bought the records were kind of kids up to 18 years old. They bought the most amount of records, right? And the business was run by people over 40, trying to cater for people under 20. And it was like, you were fed what they wanted you to have. So it had its drawbacks. Your access to music was limited unless you went to record stores and imported stuff. But for the vast majority of people, they thought, I remember people saying to me, yeah, that's really good. Why don't you go on Top of the Pops? It's like, shit, man, I wish I'd thought of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but that's what they thought. But now it's so vast. You can get anything you want now. Do you know what I mean? And people are listening. There's so much. I love new music. Do you know what I mean? I don't listen to old music very often. Sometimes I do, but most of the time I wanna hear what the sounds are, what people are doing, and it blows me away. I love it, but people get stuck in that little place that they're comfortable, and they lose track of what's coming and what's going on right now. And that is a dangerous fucking place to be.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I like to think that I'm fairly, particularly for my age, I'm fairly with it in the sense that I'm really into my dance music and I love it. But Jesus Christ, like, unfortunately at the moment, music isn't my full-time job. I have my own business, and then I do music as a hobby, and hopefully I can make it full-time one day. But sometimes I don't, I'll get 2-3 weeks where I'll go without having done much. I'll come back to listen to some fresh music and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm so behind. There's been hundreds and hundreds of tracks released. I'm like, you can get left behind quick,
Yeah, oh, you can do. You can do. You've got to have your finger on it. You've got to be immersed in it, and you can't fake it. Do you know what I mean? I mean, years ago, people used to go on tour to promote a record. Now they put a record out to promote a tour.
Wow. Yeah.
Because that's the only way people make money.
Yeah.
You don't make money from records anymore. You get 1 million streams, $3,000 or $4,000. You sold 1 million records, you'd be buying a house.
Yeah.
So the game has changed.
Do you think there was much of a disruption to that system come 2020 when no one could tour?
Yeah, that's when people started noticing. So even people like Nile Rodgers, they were like, where are all the royalties? Where are the royalties from Spotify? because he wasn't out gigging and touring and wasn't getting the money in. So they were looking for the other avenues for their revenue streams and realized that they weren't there.
Mm.
Have you seen the series, the playlist?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Mate, you want to watch it
Mm.
on Netflix.
Right.
It's awesome.
Right.
How Spotify was built, and mate, it's a real eye opener.
Right.
You know how they took on, you know, the record companies, and because Napster and all that, they were the pirates,
Mm.
but then Spotify's, and they're kind of halfway between the two,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
They do pay artists, but they really pay them a pittance.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll definitely get into that later on. But what I want to do is take you back to the very, very start.
Okay.
Back when you was young, your first memories in life. What was your first musical memory?
I suppose, I mean, I was always fascinated by sounds. So through my life, there were certain records that I heard and kind of tried to figure out how they made those sounds. I mean, if I don't know if you've heard of a band called ELO, Electric Light Orchestra. That album Out of the Blue from 1979, it still sounds so good today. And you think, I don't know how, because a lot of the stuff that was out at that time, you know, like punk music, I got into punk really late. I missed it first time round, but when I kind of discovered it, the energy, the rawness, the kind of, you just felt everything. It was shit mostly, but it was so bad, it was brilliant, right?
Yeah.
And the recording quality wasn't great. But then you get like people like Jeff Lynne, ELO, and he put together Out of the Blue, and it's like, you know, Mr. Blue Sky and all that. And it's like, shit. And then there was Heatwave, Boogie Nights, you know, it's like, it was just a magical sound.
Mm.
And all the way through, you know, there was odd records that as a kid, before I couldn't, you know, I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to be a mounted policeman or an astronaut, you know, but I would pick up on these things. How do they make that? How do they do that? And it just fascinated me.
Mm.
And they're my first real musical memories.
Hmm. And roughly what age would this have been?
Um, I guess when I started kind of picking up on sounds and going back to older records, 13, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm. And was there much of a musical influence before that? Were you listening to parents play music off the radio? Did that influence you at all?
No,
No.
not really. No, my dad was into football and reading the paper, smoking cigarettes,
Hmm.
and yeah, they they were always. My mum later on did get into music and stuff like that, but no, it wasn't. It didn't run in the family.
Hmm. So you had musical influences in your what early teens, I guess.
Yeah, that was my musical taste has always been. I've never picked one direction and stuck with it.
Hmm.
I've always taken little bits,
Hmm.
and you know, hence, you know, liking everything from, you know, Never Mind the Bollocks by the Sex Pistols to Elton John, admittedly, you know, writes some good songs. Example, you know, people like that. And, you know, even I listened to Sergeant Pepper's by the Beatles
Hmm.
about 2 years ago from start to finish. And man, I needed a rest after that. It was it was mental
Yeah.
how they did that back in the day.
Hmm.
Like it was incredible. And
Hmm.
it's people always kind of trying to push the boundaries. And there was one song that George Martin, he was a producer of the Beatles, and I think it was John said, I like take number 4. And Paul said, now like take number 7, and they were both in different keys.
Mm.
So we slowed the tape down on one and sped it up on the other, and joined half of it together. And it was like, do you know what I mean?
Mm.
It's just ingenious.
Mm.
So understanding that, it's like, I mean, even now I listen to a lot of audiobooks, right, when I drive, and I love listening to the biographies.
Mm-hmm.
And when I listen to biographies of musicians, I kind of, they get to a point where they're recording an album. I'll pause the audiobook, go to Spotify, which I love and hate, listen to the album, and then come back to it. And then, do you know what I mean? And you've got a different perspective on the album and what the album means to that person.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of people, they'll listen to something and it just goes in one ear and out the other. But if you really listen to it, and you listen to it in a different context, it means something different.
Mm-hmm. So when did you first take action and pick up your first musical instrument?
Early 90s, I guess. Yeah, wanted to be in a band. And in 1994, I put an advert in Future Music and Melody Maker for a female vocalist. I got one reply from a bloke, and we started working together. And I very soon realized I didn't want to be an artist,
Really?
mate. It
Wow.
was, yeah, it was, yeah, that was an eye opener. It wasn't my bag. I didn't like being on stage.
Really? Mm.
Yeah. So that's when kind of focused on kind of remixing and kind of writing really.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a backroom thing. And even now, you know, some of the publicity photos I've had have been literally of me facing away from the camera,
Mm.
you know, the back of my head, because I just don't like it.
Mm. This is going to be fascinating to pick your brains then, because the vast majority of people I've had on here have been DJs who also produce, or producers, but they love to DJ as well. But you sound like the type of person that I've discussed a few times on this podcast, which is somebody like Avicii, where they love being in the studio, not a fan of being in front of the crowds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
That's about the size of it.
Mm.
Yeah. It's the guy I used to work with, he loved it. You know, he was the perfect front man, very flamboyant, very outspoken, and which was good because that meant I could kind of stay in the background. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm just a lot happier, you know, in my studio with all the doors shut.
Mm-hmm. So how did we get from this time in 1994 to where we are now?
So it was a progression. We started doing remixes and then production, and we got involved with guys from Virgin Records, and uh, from another person who will now remain nameless, um, got us hooked up with some pretty serious artists, for doing remixes and production. And we kind of just kept climbing up and up and up. And we were kind of working and remixing Shanty Aaliyah, Boys to Men, kind of people like that. And I don't like R&B. Didn't really like hip hop. Do you know what I mean? But that seemed to be the direction we were going in. And then 2008, I was asked to do an album for from Run DMC, and he wanted to remake all his old classics. And I kind of suggested, well, let's do it totally differently. Let's kind of do it with real drums, real instruments, and kind of cut synths and, you know, stuff like that in there. And let's get some featured artists. So this was being run by a major label, and I came up with a lick, and the guy from the label said, "Sounds a bit like Bananarama." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, maybe we could sample it." And he said, "No." He said, "Sod that. I'll get them in." So he wheeled them in, and then we got Beverly Knight, and then we got Melanie C. Method Man did something, and Kimberly Wyatt from the Pussycat Dolls, and they all, you know, came here, and mate, it was just this incredible journey. And Ron used to phone me up, and he'd say, "Hey, how's it going?" Like, you know, and it's like, I'm like, Jesus Christ. And it was a great album. It was really good. And the record label were like, "You're on your way. This is it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I can feel it." And Ron phoned me, and we did a track with Beverly Knight, and we decided to write a hook line to add to the track. And he played it. Ron played it to one of his mates, and his mate said, "This is a smash record." I was really excited, especially because his mate was Jay-Z, right?
Oh, wow.
And I was really excited. And then the shit hit the fan. There was loads of problems with legals. There was loads of problems with release forms, consent. And then there was the ownership of kind of various parts. And it was like, mate, it fell over. Died in the gutter outside the studio and got flushed down the drain. And that really pissed me off.
Mm,
And we did some stuff with Leona Lewis, did 5 tracks with her.
wow.
Same thing happened. And it was like, that's it. I'm out of this game. I'm going to start my own thing. And I'm just going to do the music I love.
So how
So
recent then with Leona Lewis?
that was 2009, 2010, I think.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
It's
that was the last straw for you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the guy. It's funny because the guy I work with, he kind of carried on in that vein, and he's now paying cash for a 6-bedroom house in Kent. And do you know what I mean? He's doing really well for himself. Um, but I'm a lot happier because I've got control over everything I do.
Yeah.
And the journey on the production side, you know, learning, you know, how to try and do things a bit differently or try and come up with something, you know, it's been really satisfying and rewarding for me. And that's worth more than anything, really.
Mm, absolutely. So tell me about the transition from sort of working with artists that may be labeled as mainstream to coming into the more dance music side of things.
Yeah, it was quite it was brilliant because it's the whole dynamic changed, you know, everything changed and you get more freedom. It's how do I explain it? If you're working with the big artists and you know you've got the big record labels and you know you're doing all this, it's like working in an arena. You do dance music, it's like working in a box. Do you know what I mean? Everything's like at hand. You got a smaller label, and it's just doing what it says on the tin. And I much prefer that. I don't like the bullshit corporate
Mm, yeah.
nonsense.
Have you come across that still? Because of course there is, even with dance music, there's bigger artists where they're connected to these labels and they still have these same headaches.
Yeah, there's always headaches, and the more people in the chain,
Mm,
the more chance there is of something to go wrong.
yeah.
So for a record, you've got to have all your ducks in a row,
Mm,
and everything's got to fall at the right time to
mm,
keep the momentum going.
right.
if something breaks, the momentum stops,
Mm,
and that's it. You know, you've lost the momentum, you've lost everything on that record, really,
mm,
because while you're doing it, somebody else has done it right, and the
mm,
whole world's moving on. So you can't generally pick the pieces up, put them back together, and try and pick up from where you look, because everyone's like, "Oh, mate, sorry, yeah, we're on it, we're over here now." Do you know
mm,
what I mean? It's but that happens. It happens a lot.
mm,
But it happened with the Showtek track with
mm.
Free.
Yeah, yeah. So when do you think you started listening to, getting more influenced and wanting to produce dance music?
2012. Yeah,
Great time.
it was. Yeah, it was Christmas, and
Really
I just thought, yeah, that's it. That's what I'm going to do, and that's what I did. And it
fantastic.
was exciting. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I know that most people that I speak to, 2012 was the year for them
Yeah,
when they really got into it. For me, it was a bit earlier, because I'm 24 now. But I really got into dance music in 2009.
yeah,
So I got into it with sort of the early 2000s trance stuff. Because when, what, 2009, I would have been 11, 12 years old.
yeah,
So I just got into high school. At that time, you're kind of getting a bit further away from your parents. You're listening to your own stuff, and the iPod had just come out, that sort of thing. I mean, I had an MP3 player still at that time. But I was downloading trance tracks off of YouTube, putting it through the converter, and listening on the way
yeah,
to school,
yeah,
that sort of thing. And yeah, I started listening to trance, and then sort of Tiesto, Hardwell, getting into it that way. And then sort of 2010, I'd say, I really got into sort of the big room EDM sound, and then it obviously developed and really hit its peak around 2012, 2013. So I'd
So you would have got straight into the example album then.
um example as in like the artist example.
Yeah,
I did,
that was.
yeah, I did. But I was always into like like the big room sound, the 128, like what you've produced.
Yeah, yeah,
That is right there for me. That's what I've always been on. Like that is my thing. So when I heard you produce Free, I was like, oh, love it. Because that right there, that's my stuff. Because I remember back then, sort of around 2012, every day when I'd go to school, all my mates were listening to dubstep, which just
yeah,
was,
Skrillex, and yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I couldn't stand it. It was just screechy noises to me. It never got me. I always preferred the Dutch sound.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with dance music is like in the 90s, dance music, it was like 130, 131, 133. There was like 128. Kind of now it's like 124.
Yeah.
It's getting slower and slower. It's but it's trying to, I look back and think at that time, why was the music so much quicker?
Mm,
And in part of me says because it sounds shit played slow because it didn't have any soul.
right.
It was just, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It was like offbeat, boom, 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 like that. And it's like,
Mm,
and I always think, and I did a lot of work in Germany, and bless them, they didn't really have much soul with the music. It was
mm,
always very clinical and
mm,
that kind of stuff. The
mm,
Americans always had the soul,
right.
and I guess that's in a way why people sample those records. I mean, you got people like LF System now and Joy Anonymous. They're making the records that they're sampling those kind of rare and those kind of funky lines. But mate, they're changing the tempos.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean? They're slowing them down and then building them up.
mhm.
And that hadn't been done. What was the record? Was that 1989? I can't remember that record that did it, but everyone was talking about it then. But Yeah, LF System, Hungry, that track they got at the moment, same thing, slows down and then I'm hungry, hungry, hungry. It's just fantastic. And
Yeah.
it's just like, and you listen to Joy Anonymous,
Hmm.
and they've remade I'm really bad with names, but they've remade a track and it's great. The vocal is great,
Hmm.
but where they've got those string lines and they've got them to work, and you hear it first, you think, mate, that's messy,
Mm.
but then you look, no, it's not messy.
Mm.
It's really clever.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? That those are the kind of those are the kind of things that excite me really,
Mm.
and
It's it's
I can't listen back to stuff.
yeah.
So I haven't heard anything from the '90s since the '90s really.
Mm.
You know, I don't really listen to it.
Mm.
I love what's what's coming up and what's new.
Mm.
And I'm not, I don't suppose I don't really get into sampling really, but I wouldn't know where to start sampling in the '90s because I just didn't like much of the stuff that was going on then.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating talking to as many people as I have now, and people say how they have new respect for certain songs that they've listened to in the past and not
Yeah,
like, but then they've learned to produce and they've seen the genius in the song once they know what's happening behind the scenes technically.
yeah, yeah. But at the same time, see, music, if you if you take a song that was big in your brain from 2012
Mm.
and then go back and listen to it now, production values, you'll think, oh, where's the bottom end? What's going on, right?
Mm.
It doesn't sound as good
Mm.
as it does in your head.
Mm.
And one of the reasons that music is magical is because it's like when you see an artist in the pub doing covers on an acoustic guitar, and you say, "Oh, I love that song," and they sing it. Part of you is listening to the guy or the girl singing the song, but the other part of you is back where you heard that song and you made that memory of when you loved it.
Mm.
So it takes you to places, and it's trying to create something that is worthy of somebody to have a memory of that song.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And that's one of the challenges is, you know, A, writing a song that somebody wants to cover in the pub, but making a track that people will remember and think, oh shit, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I was in Corsica or whatever with a load of mates. And, you know, it takes you right back to that time. And that's what it's about. And
Mm.
it's like with movies and with horror films, next year's horror film is going to be scarier than this year's horror film. And this year's is scarier than last year's. It's the same with music, you know. The bottom end is going to be bigger in next year than it is now, and they're going to have more tricks to make you go, whoa. But at the end of the day, if it's a song, the melody and the lyric is key.
Mm.
And there's a lot of songs that you can just sing on a guitar and it sounds shit hot.
Mm.
And then you put a great beat behind it and it sounds shit hot. You know, that's a real song, and that's the simplicity and the genius. And some of those songs from the '90s that have been covered, some of the songs from the '70s, like it was Majestic, what he's done recently. You know, he's taken that simple part and turned it into a bit of a monster. Do you know what I mean? And
Mm.
that's a clever thing.
Do you think that's the natural progression for an artist, all artists, to evolve over time, where you can go back 10 years in the catalogue, listen to something and go, yeah, I can see the flaws, and then you can see the progression.
Yes, 100%. And the thing with being a producer, writer, you never have the privilege of hearing a song that you've done for the first time. Do you know what I mean? So I might give you a track and you can hear it, think, oh, like that, or I don't like it, right? But for the person that's creating it, you never get that opportunity because it's always work in progress. So you have that idea and you have that 8-bar loop running and you hear it 1,000 times, you know, you still got to try and keep the faith in it. And it's, you hear the finished article and you think, nah, bass line, bass should have been up, change the kick drum, don't like the hi-hat pattern, you know, wish I'd done this, wish I'd done that. So you always see the flaws in it. And when you come back to it, sometimes you think, shit, that actually wasn't that bad. Or, no, I was right, that was shit. Do you know what I mean? So it's, yeah, you will see, but if you listen to music through the decades, it changes. No, it's like a clock, you know, it's moving, but you can't actually see it move.
Right.
And you go at the start of the 2000s to the end of the 2000s, you know, there's a few defining records that stand out and jump out to you, but gradually it all changes. And that's, change is inevitable, progress isn't, but that's what happens. We have to change.
So now that we've covered your sort of timeline from the early years to now, and want to ask you next, how did you come up with your name?
House. That's the house I live in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, that's a giveaway then. Fans, go and have a look. Right. What made you pick that?
Because names has always been, mate, picking a name is so hard. You kind of got to live with it.
Yeah.
And I love where I live. So I thought, why not? You know?
That's beautiful. Wow. I didn't expect that at all. I thought, I don't know. I thought a few things, but that wasn't what came to mind. But wow, fair play. So, what would you say is your favorite musical memory so far?
Mate, that is so hard to pin down. But I'm guessing, I mean, it could be the Run album. Be invited to as Run's guest to the Mobo Awards when he was presenting it with Mel B.
Wow.
That was pretty cool. And Beverly Knight, mate, she was like in awe of Run, and she was dying to meet him. So we were going to the Mobo that night. So we took her, and we met in a pub opposite the Ritz Hotel in London. And Run came in the pub, and he's like, he met Beverly, and Beverly's like, oh, hello, Run. And he's like, so what's the song like then, Cliff? Because he knew we were coming up with a hook line. I said, well, tell you what, you start rapping and Beverly will come in with the hook.
Wow.
So we're just at a table in the pub.
Right.
And he starts, 2 years ago, a friend of mine asked me to say an MC. Right, do you know what I mean? He's spinning the track.
Wow.
And then Beverly comes in with her vocal and he's like, he's sitting there and he goes, whoa. That was pretty awesome because everyone was kind of like, I'm sure that's Run. I'm sure that's Beverly Knight.
Wow.
And it's like, yeah, it was pretty cool.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, you've got some stories to tell. Absolutely. So, who's your biggest inspiration?
Mate, there's no one person because of my musical taste.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Jeff Lynne, ELO, Calvin Harris, Motion, that album, mate, it's brilliant. 18 months, another good album. It depends on the day. Do you know what I mean? Who I'm listening to, and you think, oh wow, that's amazing. I wish I could do something like that. that's my new favorite person.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? And then next week it's somebody else.
Right.
So, I mean, I teach martial arts, right? And
No way.
one thing that my students really love is the playlist. So we have banging house like playing when we're training, and it's now got to a point where I have to share the playlist at the end of the night in the WhatsApp group. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, shit, where'd you get all these tunes? Mate, they're on Spotify. Do you know what I mean? So I think I think our culture's changed, as in people used to buy into bands. They used to buy albums. They used to go and see them on tour,
Mm,
etc. We're a singles market now. So the playlist is king. So
right.
people will have a playlist rather than an album. You couldn't do that 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You know, you'd have mixtapes,
Mm,
whatever. Then the iPod came along and, you know, you could do whatever. But now, Spotify playlist, you could take the best of whatever artist you want and mix them up.
mm. What's the best piece of advice you could give for upcoming producers?
First is never give up and do not make music for other people. Make it for yourself.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter how good you are, people are going to tell you you're shit.
Mm,
And if
yeah.
you sold out and are trying to make something to fit a certain market and someone says it's shit, you're going to think, yeah, I know. Because it's not, it's got to come from here or there, the heart. And you keep your integrity. If
Mm,
someone says it's shit, think, mate, it's cool. Doesn't matter because I've made it, it's from the heart, it's me. And people aren't stupid. They know if it's fake.
mm,
So that would be my advice.
right. Yeah. And then how do you think people should go about keeping motivated when trying to produce, trying to find inspiration?
Read biographies, and you realize how shit life is for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Debbie Harry's autobiography is wicked. What's happened to her is horrendous.
Mm,
You know, Gary Newman, mate, he he changed the sound. You know, the way he used synths and
mm,
stuff like that. But that was a complete accident how he started. It wasn't, you know, it literally was an accident.
mm,
And they just happened to have a synth thing at the studio where he was recording a guitar track. And it's like, oh, I like this.
mm,
But his story, how his struggle, and you realize that it, if you want to succeed, you've got to fail. And you've got to take the knocks and you just got to get up and you just got to just keep going. But
mm,
then when you realize how these people who are mega successful, how hard it's been,
mm.
how many times they've been kicked in the nuts and got back up, you think, they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I know for certain, and you've said multiple times earlier on how difficult it can be to try and keep your eyes on the prize, to try and keep pointed straight forward and motivated. It can be difficult when you get a big knockdown like that. It can be incredibly
See,
difficult.
I get a lot of you speak to Lee at my label, you know, and I don't give a shit. Really, and that's my attitude. I make the music, I love it.
Mm,
If nobody liked it, I couldn't care less.
yeah.
And that just keeps you in a space where you're not trying to please people.
Yeah. Yeah. You can almost keep control of how you're feeling about the situation and also stay grounded.
Yeah, yeah. And I've had a lot of rejection.
Mm,
It just got to a point now, it just doesn't bother me.
yeah.
You know, people that are close to me, they do say, you know, sometimes, you know, how can you like keep going? I said, just can, because I love doing it. If I never made a penny out of music, I'd still do it because I love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's like breathing.
yeah,
You just got to do it.
yeah, yeah. That sums up myself completely as well. I mean, I've never made a penny off music as of right now, and I mean, I've been doing it pretty hard for the best part of 4 years, but you know, I'm learning to produce later on this year, and hopefully I can start to, you know, make it a reality that maybe one day I can make my business a side hustle and have music be the main thing. But I'll never
Yeah.
give up on it. I'll never give up on it.
No, it's. I mean, people, right? For it to be happy in life, you've got to have something to do, someone to love, and something to look forward to.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And if you can do something that you're passionate about, that that is a lot more than most people will ever get the chance to do.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean?
mm,
And it's important that people do that. You know, whether you're passionate about pottery, knitting, you know, learning another language or whatever, if that is your passion, it's important that you do it.
yeah.
Because if you don't, you become a shit person.
Mm.
And then if you're a shit person, people don't want to know you.
Well,
You know
I
what I mean?
bet you can. I bet you can think of a few people who, say, for example, with the music industry, maybe gave a good go of it, fell by the wayside, and are quite bitter. I remember there was a good friend of mine, used to be a good friend, uh, but unfortunately, I mean, he did fairly well for himself. I think he had BBC Radio #1 at one point about 5, 6 years ago, but he just fell by the wayside because he became so bitter, and I could pick up his bitterness for other people's success more than I could his joy for his own.
Yeah, that is it's everything's contagious.
Mm,
Bitterness, sadness, and joy is
mm,
contagious. If you
mm,
smile, other people smile.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, and if that's what you portray, it kind of makes you toxic as a person.
Mm,
And the business is built on relationships. And it's like if you've got an artist that's very pick me, Nigel, pick me, people are like, oh,
yeah.
not interested. I always equated it to dating.
Mm,
So if you go out on a date and you get on well with someone
mm,
and they like you and you kind of like respect their boundaries and you play the game and you know you gently follow up and you get to know each other.
mm.
But if they like you and you're at the dinner table saying, how many kids do we want to have? Where do you want to live? They're like, whoa, back up.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what it's like in the music.
yeah.
You
Mm,
know, there used to be A&Rs would court you.
mm,
And if they thought you were cool, and people always want what they can't have.
mm,
So if you seem too eager, it gives them the upper hand and they're like, nah.
mm.
And there's people that are just naturally cool
Yeah.
and they naturally have that thing that people want to be around them. It's not
Mm,
a talent,
mm,
it's just there. And when they sing, they're not a brilliant singer, but they're magnetic.
mm,
Do you know what I mean? It's that quality, that star quality, that dynamic that people kind of latch onto.
mm.
And that's what makes kind of a lot of artists successful.
Yeah. It's funny because you say sort of like, you know, how you have to get bullheaded and you have to stay mentally strong, and eventually you build up such a sort of strong head that you're able to go through it, and then you start finding success because you don't let it affect you. And it's funny that you mentioned there about sort of dating. I about 10 minutes ago when you was talking about that was kind of relating to dating in my head as well.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking back to a few years back when, you know, you become a young man, a late teens, early 20s man, and you're going out and dating. You can really get kicked back sometimes, particularly with modern dating on these apps and stuff, where sometimes, you know, I tell my mates, sometimes you'll end up matching with 10 out of 100. You might chat to 1 in 10, and then out of, you know, you've got 1 in 100 chance. So what have you got to do? You got to get like thousands, and you just got to keep going and going and going and going, and eventually something will work.
Yeah.
A lot of people, you know, there's a couple of mates out there that I've got where they get very disheartened quickly because there's been 20 girls online and it's not worked with any of them. Where it's like, well, yeah, but you know, you haven't met any of them yet. You've got to get 100, then start speaking to 20. You might go on a date with 2, and then, you know, over and over and over again, and then eventually it works out. It's having that strong head, isn't it? Of, you know, despite
It's understanding the psychology of everything, because you've got to realize that the girls feel the same.
yeah, yeah.
I always say nothing is ever as it seems.
Mm,
So you might think, shit, I'm not having any luck.
mm,
But other people aren't either.
Yeah.
Until they do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where talking to people and working with people come in, because, you know, I like to write with other people, and I have a vision for a track, and then they come in, and of course they're not me, so they see it differently.
Mm,
And then they'll say a lyric or part of a melody, and it's like, Jesus, didn't think of going there, but that's great, that works. So remaining isolated is comfortable, but
mm,
it's not always great.
yeah.
And that, in the same instance, what we talked about networking earlier on, you know, and you meet people, you naturally click with them, you get on with them, and you can't do that if you don't go there, but you can't do that on an email.
Mm,
So putting your face in front of people, and that goes to the dates. I see plenty of pictures of people and think they're nice, but when you actually meet them, there is nothing there.
mm,
I mean, how many times have you met somebody that you thought was attractive, started speaking to them, and they are not attractive anymore?
yeah.
And it works the other way around. You can meet somebody that looks okay, but you start speaking to them, and it's like, wow. So it's,
Yeah.
you know, doing things online all the time ain't great. And
No.
people collaborate online.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean? It's not the same as having somebody in the room.
no.
You know, we could make a track now, and it, you know, you could chuck ideas in, but it wouldn't be the same if you were sat here and think, oh, try this, try that. There's a different energy.
That was the word I was going to use, energy.
Yeah.
Mm,
And that it's only when you get in front of somebody that you actually feel that energy. And if they happen to be in the music business when you're trying to network and you click with that person, it's like, okay,
mm.
you know, you form a friendship, you know, stuff happens. So swipe left, mate, no chance.
Yeah. So bringing it back to music, a question I often ask a lot of the people I have on is, do you need to produce to be a successful DJ? Because a lot of the time I'm asking this of DJs that happen to produce. However, I'm going to ask this differently because you are a producer. So I'm going to ask, do you need to DJ as well as produce to be successful as an artist or perform?
I live my life by two golden rules. One is always follow the rules. The second one is there are no rules.
Hmm,
So
hmm,
so it's like somebody can say, like, to be a successful artist, you've got to be 18, 19, 20,
Mm.
attractive,
Yeah,
etc., etc.
yeah.
Right? 2 words: Susan Boyle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, for whatever reason, somebody says you have to do this, you can find somebody that's been successful because they've done exactly the opposite.
Yeah, yeah.
But being a DJ in dance music, you know what works in a
Mm,
club.
mm,
You know how to build attention. You know how to make a crowd. You know, you've got to give that energy, right? So I said earlier, don't make music for other people. Make it for yourself. When you DJ, you can't DJ for yourself.
mm,
You have to DJ for the room. You have to DJ for the people that are there. It's a completely different vibe
mm,
until you become mega successful,
mm,
and then people come and see the DJ.
yeah.
So there's a difference between going out clubbing and going to see a DJ.
Hmm.
You know, you go and see Calvin Harris, you expect to hear Calvin Harris tracks, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Oh, forget, I just want to see Calvin."
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm,
So there's lots of contradictions, but yeah, if you know what makes a room tick, what makes the energy stay in the room and not leave the room, then that will give you an edge on producing music.
mm.
It won't make you write great songs though.
Yeah. Would you say there's a particular artist you've worked with where you expected a certain level and they just blew you away?
Yeah, Beverly Knight, one, and a long time ago there was an artist called Riyadh, and he was a 6'2" or 6'3" French Navajo Indian, right? Yeah,
Oh.
exactly. And everywhere we were walking, mate, it was like I wasn't there. He he just attracted everybody. Was just looking at this guy, and we were working in the studio, and he was a bit like Seal in many ways with his kind of vibe. And I'd say, oh, guitar part, do you want to do that again? He'd be like, no. I said, yeah, but you made a mistake. He said, yes, but it's a good mistake. And I'm like, no, it just changed the way I looked at things.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
He was embracing. You know, he was like, the world is not a perfect place. I
Mm,
mean, I won't do the voice because it's crap. But yeah, I was blown away by him, and he was signed to. There was a guy called Robin Godfrey Cass, and he's called him Robin Godfrey Cash because he spent shitloads of money on everything, and that was one of his artists. And you know what? Nothing ever happened with it. They spent a fortune, and it just didn't connect, and I don't know why. Lenny Kravitz, Steel, that's him.
mm. It's mad, isn't it, when you think about the people out there who you meet like that, who you
Yeah,
think you could be such a massive star, and then it just never happens.
yeah, yeah.
Madness. I
That's the
wonder,
way of the world, though.
I wonder how many we've got out there like that.
Yeah,
Nah.
but it's like, I mean, I don't particularly like the X Factor,
Mm.
but it's been running for about 1 million years now. But every year there's somebody on there that it's like, whoa, where do they come from? So they are around.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
There's a lot of like vocalists that you hear on featured artists, like Harley, for instance. She featured on, oh, Jesus Christ, I don't know whether it's Jax Jones or, but anyway, mate, her vocal's awesome. There's something in it that you can have somebody that's a perfect singer, note for note, and it's like, yeah, it's good, it's correct, And then you got somebody that comes along and they'll sing and it's not in tune, but it just blows you away. Don't know what it is, but some people have got that and they're still out there somewhere, and finding those people there. Do you know what I mean? It's you got to kiss a lot of frogs, mate, before you find the right pair.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if there was one song that you could say made the biggest impact in your life, what would that be?
It's going to be my favorite song of all time this week is Glenn Campbell, Wichita Lineman. Don't know why. And you've never heard of it? No, it's way before I was born, but
Oh, really?
it's like, yeah. And it's like, I don't know, it's got that something that I just love.
See, when people give me answers like that, when it's usually a track before they were born, it's usually because they've heard it from their parents' influences.
No,
Wow.
yeah. Heard it on a TV show or something and was like, what the hell's that? And but this is it, isn't it? It's like the energy of, it's like you can look at a picture by
Sure.
Damien Hirst or whatever, or I don't know if he's a sculptor or whatever he is, but an artist,
Mhm.
and you could look at that and think, that is shit.
Mm.
And then somebody else would come in and go, oh, wow, that is awesome. And they're both seeing the same thing. It's like DJ reaction reports. You get the DJ reactions to the mail outs that we do on the club tracks. They've all heard the same track, but the comments, it's hilarious. Do you know what I mean? It's like some are like, wow, I love this. This is brilliant. It's like, someone's like, what the hell is this? It's like, it's shit. Do you
Mm.
know what I mean?
Mm.
But yeah, no, that song, I do go phases where I love a particular song. Like I love David Guetta's, I love the Shouts track with David Guetta. That was, love it.
Mm.
And other tracks throughout my life. I remember having to stop the car and listen to Anastasia's I'm Out of Love. Jeffrey Williams Drive, 1998. I was heading up the A30 to Marks and Spencer's when that came on. May I had to pull over. It was like a seminal moment in my life. I remember that so well.
Wow. It's mad the impact that music can have on people, isn't it? When you sit back and think about it like that. It's
Yeah, it's nuts,
mm,
but it's full of emotion, and
mm,
that's why I said to you, if you do it from here,
mm,
you keep it real, it will connect with people.
yeah,
If you make plastic music,
yeah, yeah,
it's going to connect with 5-year-olds,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's that's the way it is. And now we're moving into AI,
Mm,
and AI is frightening. There are records out in Asia in the charts that are made completely by AI. You should look up Refusion, which is an AI site, and you type in, I want dubstep with Latin guitars, bongos, and full trumpets. A few seconds, mate, it'll knock something out. And people are creating those loops, sampling them, and using them in tracks. Mate, it's scary. It's scary what's happening. You've heard of Chat GPT, haven't you? Yeah. So now people are getting them to write their thesis or essays and stuff like that. I mean, there was a professor. He typed in, I think it was a 2-verse poem by Shakespeare or somebody, and said, "I want a third verse." And basically, it analysed the wording, the characters, and all that, gave him a third verse.
Christ.
And he was a professor of, I think, literature, and he couldn't fault it.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So that's our next hurdle is artificial intelligent music.
Oh Christ.
Yeah.
See, the thing for me as well, this I can believe it, and sadly I can believe it becoming a big competitor in the scene. But that's just so sad because what does that say about humans?
Well, it says we're lazy, but I mean, it won't have any soul.
That's what I mean. I get bored. I've never been into the charts because it's all just like you say, very plastic, soulless. A lot of stuff out there. You know, it's just been pumped out. It's plastic. It's candy crap. I'm not a big fan of rock music. I'm not a big fan of some certain other genres. But when I watch, a video or I see a picture of one of these gigs, or I see a die-hard rock fan, I like that and I respect that.
Yeah.
Because there's some soul in it. There's passion. That's the
Yeah.
human in us all. That's what I've got for my love, which is dance music. I'd love to see that in other people, even if it is rock or something else.
Yeah.
But when it's just, this is why I fell out of love with going to, any type of nightclubs in the UK, because you go there and you go there the next weekend and the weekend after, and it's the exact same set every weekend throughout the year. You might get 10% of the sets changed each year because a new tracks come out, but the other 90% will be the same. And it's like, this is the mindless bullshit that the market that people would suck up this AI invented stuff, and it's sad.
You will get AI DJs, so there'll be a playlist, and the DJ will type in the rooms. I'm losing the fucking room. Sorry, I shouldn't swear. What can I do? And AI will come up with a mix, and I mean, I saw the Bee Gees. What was it? You can tell by the way I use my walk. I'm a woman's man, like that, mixed with AC/DC. Mate, it worked. It was brilliant. It was absolutely amazing. The vocals, and you've got La La AI, which is you can chuck a track in there and get the separated parts. So you can get the vocal stem, the bass stem, the drum stem. That's what people are doing. And I hear records. You listen to California Dreaming, that track that was out. If you listen really closely to the vocal, it seems to phase, right? It doesn't sound clean. And I'm sure they stripped that vocal out of the original record. And next time you listen to it, you'll know exactly what I mean. Listen to another record that's got original vocals, and you'll see the clarity and the way that it pops. But listen then to California Dreaming, and there's something that it's just phasing, and you can kind of hear it ain't quite right.
Jeez.
So that's what people do, man.
Do you think there's a positive side to the AIs coming
in? There's always a positive side.
in?
Yeah, and you can't fight it. So you've got to learn to live with it.
Yeah.
It's the same with everything. Generally you can't fight it. You just got to learn to live with it. So we will find a way to. It's like Spotify. The record companies had to change their pants every day because they were thinking, where are we going to make money? They come up with 360 deals where they get a bit of merch, a bit from touring, a bit from this and that. And I don't like Spotify because I don't earn much money from them. But I love Spotify because I can hear whatever I want, whenever I want.
Yeah.
I remember the first record I ever bought. It was a record. It was a live album by Elvis Presley, recorded in 1972 at Madison Square Garden. And my mum was an Elvis fan, and he handed his dinner plate in 1977.
Yeah.
And my mum kind of continued playing Elvis records, and I thought, I want this live. I had to go to a record store. I had to order it. It was sent from America. I went in 2 weeks later. Still remember the name of the record store. It was shit, I've forgotten it now. Colin Webber. And I picked it up. I went home, put it on the record player, and listened to it. That was a mammoth experience for me to hear that record. Like, I had to give the money, and then it was sent from America, and it came through the post, and I had to journey to now. Oh, great. 17 seconds later, the album's playing. But that has turned me into, years ago, I used to have catalogs. You used to order a pair of shoes, 28 days later, they'd be with you. You paid £2 a week, right? But if I can't get it next day, I don't want it. You know, I actually bought something the other day and I paid £10 more for it, bearing in mind the cheapest option was 17 quid. I paid 27 or 28 quid for it because I could get it next day.
That's me.
And it's,
Yeah.
so instant gratification.
Mm.
Singles now, 2 minutes 20, 2 minutes 30. 10 years ago, 3 minutes 30.
Mm.
We want it. We want the hit. With TikTok, if I see the bars really long, it's like I don't want to wait 3 minutes. Might be an hour watching TikTok.
Yeah, yeah.
But if it's 3 minute video, sod that. Scroll.
Yeah.
I need the gratification now. Have you seen Arjun B? The guy that just pulls the face. He's got like millions and millions of followers. And it's just these short videos, and he's just literally pulling this face at the same spot of the same tune in every video. And I don't know why it's brilliant, but it is. Do you know what I mean? It's like that payoff.
Yeah. It's funny because I've never really made note of it, but now that you say, back in sort of 2009, 2010, when I was getting into it, I'd say the average length of a track was between 6 to 7 minutes, and this is only 10 years ago, well, just over. Whereas nowadays, it's not even half that; it's about 3.
Yeah, that's called an extended mix. It's 3.5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I always do what they call a DJ edit.
Right.
So my brother, he's too drunk to funk, and he's a DJ, right? He's that's what he does. King of the 6 hour set. Do you know what I mean? He just goes out and he loves funky house and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's always said to me, like, don't make your records 3.5 minutes, mate, because I won't play them. Good. Make it proper. Give us the drums at the beginning, the drums at the end. Give us a build. Every 16 bars, change. Put something in. Make it interesting.
Yeah, that's me. That is.
And it's right.
Yeah.
You know, that's what, you know, you need 16 bars of drums. You got to fade it in, fade it out. And now they're doing stems. Do you know what I mean? You can get the vocal to the track, or you can get the bass groove to a track, and you can chuck that over something by Daft Punk. And it's like, whoa. And people say, yeah, but you're just using other people's music. It's no talent. Yes, it is a talent, because you've got to know what part to put with what record. Do you know what I mean? Ride on Time. Do you remember that record? Ride on Time.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone used to slag it because it was a sample.
Right.
But it's not even the sample, the lead, the main song sample. It's the ad-libs. Mate, who would have thought that taking those ad-libs and chucking them over a dance track would make such an immense record? Do you know what I mean? That's the talent. And that's where I think people misunderstand DJs. they're not just playing other people's records. They're doing things with other people's records in a way that makes you feel alive. They're doing interesting things. I mean, look, it's Jax Jones, isn't it? Like Ford X. Jesus Christ, man! He's got hands all over the place.
There's a member of Swedish House Mafia called Steve Angelo.
Yeah.
And you've got to YouTube it afterwards, but it's a video from about 10 years ago, and he's at Ministry of Sound, and Ministry of Sound is famous for having one 8-channel mixer and then just 4 players either way. So you got your 8 players, and he is famous for this video, well, in my group anyway, where he's got all channels up and all 8 players are playing at the same time and is mixing them perfectly, and it is just mind-blowing to watch.
Have you seen, you've heard of Grandmaster Melly Mel? Have you seen him DJ?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
With his vinyls, his chalk marks on the records. Mate, you see people doing that now. There's no Q spots, there's no nothing. That is his cue, a little bit of chalk or tape. Mate, it's like, I don't know, that blew me away. I was kind of like, respect, but he's been doing it since Hyde Park was in the flower pot. Do you know what I mean? It's such a long time.
There's something about seeing somebody up close when you sort of got a basic understanding of what's going on, and you see somebody up close in person like that and doing what they do best. It's just amazing to watch. It's like it's unbelievable.
It is, and it has been said to me before, because I don't go out and do DJ sets, right? But I have been asked to do it, and I bought a kit. I bought a Pioneer DJ, the new, what's it called? Bloody X. Oh shit! Yeah, anyway, it's a brand new one. Oh yeah, it's the XDJ XZ.
Yeah.
Right. So I got all that, and somebody said, and they will also remain nameless because it's a cardinal sin. Put on a USB stick. No one will know. I can't do that. Do you know what I mean? Because DJing is like, see my brother DJ, and last time I saw him, he was DJing with Brandon Block in Glastonbury, and I'm like, mate, you're actually really good. Do you know what I mean? And he's like, yeah, I know. He's a cocky twat. But yeah, he's like, it's just another level of skill, mate, and it's equivalent of being a producer, because what we try to do as producers is make records that make people feel good, but we also, there's an element of catering for DJs in the records that you make. You've got to have but then the DJs, what they do with the records, it all surprises me, like the way they make them work. Do you work with stems?
I don't at the moment, no.
I think that would be a key part for me. I think getting the vocal stems of lots of tracks, and I mean, these things even tell you what key the bloody thing's in, so you can get them working with it, and it's like, it's just a different tilt on it, isn't it?
I watched a YouTube video a few weeks back. I've referenced it before, and it's a good watch. It's a good laugh. It's this big American YouTuber, and he basically says, I'm going to go and learn to DJ. I've got a DJ set in 2 weeks. I've never done it before, and I'm going to see what this is all about, and if this is really as easy as they say it is, if it's just button pushing. And so he goes out and he starts learning, and he gets Dylan Francis to teach him how to DJ and all the basics. And he's got this gig booked at the end of this 2 weeks, and he goes and he plays, and he messes up a few times, but at the end of at the end of the night. He's had a good night and everyone's enjoyed themselves. And he says, basically, to sum it up, DJing is very easy in the sense that you can get the basics down, but it's very hard to become talented at entertaining a crowd and doing it your way. It's what you put on top of those basic skills that makes you a good DJ.
Yeah. Well, it's like anyone can run, but we wouldn't all win 100 meters.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? It's it's difficult, and I've got a lot of respect for DJs. An awful lot of respect.
Yeah. So coming up to the last couple of questions, I wanted to sort of maybe get an inside scoop, pick your brain at all, and ask you, dealing with some of the biggest artists in the world as you have, what's the craziest thing you've seen in the music industry?
I don't know if I can say the craziest things. It depends what you mean by crazy.
Outrageous. I don't know. Obviously, we don't want to, you know, you've got to tread carefully, but within reason. I mean,
I can't divulge anything without divulging everything, if you know what I mean. So
yeah,
a lot of crazy things, a lot of naughty things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather not, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, in short, like, referencing what we were talking about earlier in regards to vast majority of the people in the music industry are very nice to get along with, but you do get them divas, and we've sort of briefly spoken about that in the past. And yeah, so I suppose it's one of those, isn't it? But it's that kind of industry. It's not bricklaying, you know. You're going to get some people who will swing their willy about a bit, and you know, it's one of those. Yeah. What would you say if, say, an aspiring DJ or producer comes across, shall we say, some of these strong characters, and they feel a bit sort of hurt, maybe they ignore them or whatever? You know, sort of these
never meet your idols.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're people, right? And there's a lot of egos, and the egos usually come because of insecurity. So the best thing you can ever show them is your own security.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. I think the last sort of question I've got to ask you is, what would your dream collaboration be?
Ooh. I don't know if it would sound a bit twee if I said Calvin Harris.
No, not at all.
Calvin Harris, then.
Nice. Would he maybe have been your biggest influence in the dance music arena?
No, not really. Because I mean, I think he's not really dances. He's more kind of, dare I say, dance pop. Really, it's commercial, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Swedish House Mafia, a lot of respect, especially the new batch of stuff that's come out. Red Light. I mean, what a record! That was just incredible. That record.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like they could just go back and come up with something, and it's like, because you think they've had it, they're done, they really had a good time. Oh shit, they're back with something even better. Do you know what I mean? It's and you get people like that, but there's three of them, isn't there? So it's like there's people to bounce ideas off. When you work on your own, it's like if you look at the credits, you go to like see Joel Corey, go on Spotify, look at the credits, see the amount of writers, producers, the arrangers. Like he's got a team of people. They're all putting bits in. I know how some of those gigs work, and it's not some of the bigger artists. I'm not going to name anybody, but some of them don't even make the records.
Oh, I know.
There's ghost producers, one of which I actually call him Casper. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but there's so many people involved in it.
Yeah.
They're the name, they're the sales point, they're the focus of the record, but it's
Mm.
been made by other people. And
Well,
it's
I don't mind telling you that what three-ish years ago, when I was at Ministry of Sound, I was approached by somebody. Bearing in mind, I still don't produce now, so I didn't back then. And they basically said to me, if you pay £500 this way, you'll get an official remix on Spinning. And I was like,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, pay to play. That's that's been going on for years. And it's like when you're starting out, people say, yeah, but it's good for your profile, it's good for your promotion. You're going to be linked with this and linked with that. But people do not value what's free.
No, no.
You put a record out free of charge, try and get people to listen to it. They won't. It's they they need value. They need to think they've got value.
Mm,
And that again goes back to the type of character that you are, whether you're a please pick me, Nigel, or whether you're the kind of cool person that people want.
mm,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
That all works together. That adds the value. People, it's like there's some famous people who have recently, within the last few years, handed their dinner plates in, okay? But when they were alive, they weren't in your face. They were a mystery. They were interesting.
Mm,
And people wanted to know because they weren't being told.
mm,
But then one of them in particular, who will remain nameless, but when he was then in your face all the time, explaining why he was caught in the toilets in LA, that might have given it away a bit. He wasn't as cool then.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm,
There was no mystery.
yeah.
But then, I mean, I always say that time makes a classic artist, death makes a legend. And when he died, he became a legend.
Yeah.
And people look back on their work and, yeah, it was shit hot.
Mm,
It was really good, really good.
mm,
And that, again, is another mystery of music and art,
mm,
as a whole. You sometimes have to die to become a legend.
I was going to say, do you think we, as people, don't really fully appreciate something until it's gone, in the sense of tracks produced by somebody? We don't really appreciate their work until they're gone.
Um, I think we're very complacent as a race,
Mm,
the human race. We take things for granted.
mm,
You know, you're already planning what you're going to do next year because you assume that next year you're going to be there to do it.
mm,
And when something, it's like Jeff Beck, he died like a couple of days ago, you know, and then everyone loves Jeff Beck.
yeah.
I mean, Jeff Beck was incredible what he did, and his involvement with, I don't know, he's got like the biographies I was talking about, how involved they all were together, with each other. And you then reflect on what they've done. You think, shit, I wish I'd I wish I'd flown on Concorde. Now, I live right near Heathrow Airport. I used to see the bloody thing every day. Do you know what I mean? Oh yeah, one day I'll do it. It's not there anymore, so I can't.
Yeah.
So it's the same with everything else. When it's gone, yeah, you do kind of think, oh shit. And people focus on it, and you look at George Michael, and you'd think, yeah, he actually was an incredible talent.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he wrote Careless Whisper when he was 17 or whatever. And you listen to the lyrics I mean, he might have been younger, but you listen to the lyrics of that, and you think, shit, man. Now, even Gary Barlow, your lipstick mark's still on my coffee cup. I mean, it's about the only line from Take That I remember, but it's a hell of a line.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it takes those kind of small things, they build up in increments, and you get a lot of small things that make a big thing, and then it's gone, and then people are like, shit, yeah, shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Super powerful. Absolutely. Well, thank you for taking the time to speak to me tonight. And can you tell the people what we can expect from you in the coming year?
So I've got a release next week with Skink, and that is called There Tonight. And then I've got a release on Relentless in February, and that is called, can't remember the title, but yeah, it's on Relentless. That's on February the 6th. And then there's at least another 3 records coming out. It's going to be a busy year this year.
Mm-hmm. Are you planning a particular schedule, say one a month, something like that, or?
No,
Mm-hmm.
no.
Yeah.
I should do,
Mm-hmm.
but it's up to the labels. It's like this record that's out on Friday. That was kind of signed in September,
Wow.
and the one that's out in February, that was signed in October.
God.
So yeah,
Wow.
but I think a lot of that is Christmas is a rubbish time to release a record unless
Right.
you've got sleigh bells on it, and do you know what I mean? It's just not a great time. But the new year and spring is usually the best time to put records out.
Yeah.
Because it used to be that people would then put it in their record books to take it off to Ibiza and they're DJing, but that's the old school way of talking about it.
Wow. Wow. Well, yeah. Thanks again for being on In the Loop, and yeah, all the best for the new year.